Stand up, the judge snapped. Kendra rose, slow, steady. Where's your lawyer? She looked him in the eye and said, Sir, I am the lawyer. Before we go any further, have you ever been talked down to just because of how you looked, only to prove everyone wrong by just standing in your truth? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you've ever been underestimated, stick around. This story's for you. The air inside the Fulton County Courthouse always smelled like old paper and worn-down power. Kendra Ellis walked in with her hoodie up, her sneakers quiet on the tile. She kept her eyes forward. Not too low, not too proud. The security guard barely glanced at her backpack. Another black teenager in a courthouse? Not exactly rare. He waved her through. She wasn't carrying anything but truth. And it was heavy. Room for B. Misdemeanor arraignments. A packed schedule and a tired judge. Kendra slid into the last ROW. No one looked at her. Not yet. She scanned the courtroom. Tall wooden walls, American flag behind the bench, clock ticking louder than it should. Her breathing stayed calm. She'd trained for this, lived for this, and part of her hated that it had to be done at all. This wasn't just a courtroom. It was a test. Of her training, of her story, of who this system still believed she was. She was 19, black, female. 3 things that had been used against her before she ever spoke. 2 rows ahead, a boy no older than 17 sat in an orange jumpsuit and a lawyer. No parents. He looked like her brother once did, before he got swallowed whole. That boy had no idea she was here for him. That this whole thing, this setup, was bigger than both of them. Judge Warren Mallory didn't smile much. Not in court, anyway. He'd been sitting on the bench for 26 years. Enough time to grow calloused. Enough time to forget what fairness looked like. To him, the kids walking into his courtroom weren't kids. They were cases. They were records. They were repeat offenders. He called it experience. But really, it was bias polished by time. He walked in at 8:59 a.m. black robe. Stack of folders. Didn't make eye contact with anyone. He sat down and banged the gavel. Let's get this circus started. This wasn't some prank or publicity stunt. It was a project. Kendra was one of 10 law fellows in a special legal advocacy program. Their goal? Expose real-time courtroom bias, especially in juvenile and low-level cases where judgment was often made before anyone opened their mouth. She volunteered to be the defendant in today's live courtroom test. No one in the courtroom knew. Not the clerk. Not the bailiff. Not even the judge. Her file was fake. The charge? Trespassing and resisting arrest. Her job? Say nothing. Watch everything. Let the system reveal itself. And Judge Mallory was already playing his part. He called the first few cases quickly. Speed over humanity. The kid in orange, 17-year-old Devonte Harris, was next. No lawyer. No parent present. Kendra tensed as she watched the boy rise. His voice was barely a whisper. Yes, sir. No, sir. I don't know. Mallory scowled. Speak up, son. You in court now, not hiding behind excuses. The courtroom chuckled. Kendra's fists curled. When Devonte sat back down, his bail was set higher than what his mom made in a week. He'd sit in jail for stealing a pair of headphones. Kendra exhaled slowly. Her turn was next. The clerk called her fake name. Defendant Kendra James. She stood. Didn't adjust her hoodie. Didn't fidget. Mallory didn't look up right away. Just stared at the file. No attorney on record. You here by yourself, young lady? Kendra nodded once. The judge raised an eyebrow. Lord have mercy, he muttered. Another one who thinks they know the system, 'cause they watched an episode of Law and Order. A few people chuckled again. Kendra didn't blink. Mallory leaned forward. You're charged with trespassing and resisting arrest. You understand that? Kendra stayed still. Silent. Mallory's voice sharpened. I asked you a question, Ms. James. Still, nothing. The room shifted. Eyes now on her. Then came the line. You think silence makes you smart? You look like every other angry little girl I've seen in this courtroom. You all think the rules don't apply. He shook his head and turned to the clerk. Let's just assign her a public defender and move on. Get her out of here before she wastes more of my morning. And that's when he walked in, Mr. Chavez, the senior fellow from the legal initiative. Briefcase in hand. Calm but firm. He handed the judge a sealed letter. Mallory opened it. Read. His face changed. Slight twitch in the jaw. Eyes narrowed. Then he looked back at Kendra. But this time he really looked. Wait. What is this? Mr. Chavez cleared his throat. Sir, you've just spent the last 10 minutes mocking one of the top-ranked law students in the region. He gestured toward Kendra. She's not the defendant. She's your evaluator. And that's when the silence in the room got loud. He thought she was just another statistic. But he was about to learn, genius doesn't always come in suits and titles. You think silence makes you smart? The judge laughed, shaking his head. You girls always think you're too good to answer. But what he didn't know was that Kendra wasn't staying quiet because she didn't know what to say. She was waiting for this exact moment. The silence stretched. You could hear someone cough. The buzz of the overhead lights. The tension thick in the air. Like everyone realized they just misjudged the entire room. Judge Mallory looked down at the letter again, as if rereading it would change the facts. Law fellow, evaluator, observer. Those weren't words he was used to assigning to a girl in a hoodie, especially not one who looked like her. Kendra didn't gloat, didn't smile. She just stood there, steady, letting the weight of it all fall around her without flinching. Mr. Chavez stepped forward. We can clarify more after court. But for now, we'd like to request 10 uninterrupted minutes for Ms. Ellis to respond. As the subject of the court's own conduct review, Mallory's voice tightened. She's not a lawyer. Chavez didn't blink. She will be, and today, she's a legal fellow appointed by the Justice Equity Initiative, with approval from the chief administrative judge, which is in that envelope you're holding. Mallory shifted in his seat. Fine. Let's get this over with. He leaned back, arms crossed. You have 10 minutes, Ms. Ellis. Try not to waste them. And just like that, the courtroom changed. The audience didn't know where to look. The girl they laughed at, now holding the floor. The judge they feared, now under the spotlight. Kendra stepped forward. Hood still on, hands at her sides. She didn't need a podium, didn't need to raise her voice. She just looked at him, right in the eyes, and started to speak. Your Honor, she said calmly. You asked where my lawyer was. I am that lawyer. One person in the gallery gasped. Someone else whispered, Wait, what? Kendra continued. I've spent the last 6 months studying courtroom behavior across 5 counties. We tracked the language used by judges, the tone, the patterns of interruption, especially when it comes to black defendants. She looked around. And sadly, what happened here today was not surprising. But it was still painful. She wasn't angry. She was clear. And that made it hit harder. You mocked me, Your Honor. Before you asked my name. Before you reviewed my file. Before I said a single word. She took a breath. You assumed who I was, based on how I looked, and how quiet I was. That's the pattern. Mallory tapped his pen, trying to stay composed. I treat all defendants the same, he said flatly. Kendra didn't blink. With respect, sir. Your record says otherwise. Then she pulled out the data. Real numbers, cases, transcripts. She'd memorized it all. In the last 18 months, you've issued 76% higher bail recommendations for black teens compared to white ones. Same charges. Same profiles. The courtroom shifted again. A reporter in the back scribbled fast. Kendra stepped closer. And that line, you girls always think you're too good to answer, is in 5 other transcripts under your bench. We didn't prompt it. You did. Mallory opened his mouth, then closed it. Because what do you say when silence finally speaks? Kendra's voice dropped just slightly. I didn't come here to embarrass you, sir. I came to make the system look at itself. The room was still. No one laughed now. Not the gallery. Not the prosecutor. not the clerk. And for once, not the judge. Have you ever proved someone wrong just by standing in your truth without saying too much? Tell me about it in the comments. I'm listening. Kendra finished her time without raising her voice once. When she stepped back, she didn't sit. She stood near the wall, near the boy in the orange jumpsuit. Devontae looked at her differently now. Like maybe silence wasn't weakness. Maybe it was power, just waiting to be used. Mallory finally spoke. "Court will take a short recess," he muttered. His voice cracked just slightly. He stood, left the bench, and disappeared through the back door. Kendra walked outside and leaned against the brick wall. It was warm for spring. The air smelled like diesel and grass clippings. She took off her hoodie for the first time all morning. A reporter came up, breathless. "Ms. Ellis, can I get a quote?" That was wow. She shook her head gently. "I didn't do this for headlines." Then she looked up at the courthouse behind her. "I did this for every kid who was told to shut up before they could speak." The judge thought the moment had passed. But the truth was just beginning to echo, and silence was no longer safe. "You heard what she said, right? No yelling, no drama, just facts. That girl, that law student, tore that courtroom apart. And for the first time in years, someone inside that courthouse was being forced to look in the mirror. And the reflection wasn't clean. The story moved fast. By noon, local reporters had uploaded clips to social media by 2 p.m. National accounts were reposting it.by the time Judge Mallory returned from recess. The internet had already labeled him. Hashtag mocked her now she's the lawyer, hashtag Kendra Ellis, hashtag Fulton County bias. It was more than a viral moment. It was a spotlight. Inside the courthouse, Mallory sat alone in his chambers. Blinds closed. Phone buzzing. He ignored the calls. He read the statement from the chief judge again. The one that confirmed Kendra's identity and credentials. Every word felt heavier than the last. He'd been caught. Not yelling. Not slamming a gavel. But assuming. And now that assumption was being broadcast nationwide. Across town, Kendra sat in a folding chair inside the Justice Equity Initiative's office. She hadn't said much since leaving court. Her phone buzzed every few minutes. Missed calls, texts, interview requests. Even her old high school teacher texted her, "Proud of you. We always knew." Mr. Chavez sat beside her. "You okay?" Kendra nodded, slowly. "I'm tired." Chavez smiled gently. "You just shook a whole courtroom. You're allowed to be tired." She looked down at her shoes. "It's just, now what?" Meanwhile, inside a newsroom downtown, a young reporter named Tessa clicked replay for the 5th time. The clip of Kendra standing tall, voice low, facts sharp. No yelling. No need to. Tessa opened a blank document and typed the headline. "The girl in the hoodie who brought down a Georgia courtroom." She paused. Deleted the word girl. Typed, "Law student Kendra Ellis calls out courtroom bias and makes legal history better." Back in her neighborhood, Kendra's mother stood on the porch with her phone in her hand. She hadn't known everything. Not about the program. Not about what her daughter was planning. Kendra didn't want to worry her. But now everyone knew. The woman across the street shouted, "That's your baby on Channel 2. Her mom just smiled. "Yeah," she whispered. "That's my baby." Back at the courthouse, Devontae sat alone in a holding cell. He'd been processed hours ago. Still waiting. But something felt different now. He kept thinking about the girl in the hoodie. The way she stood up there like she wasn't afraid of anything. Like she didn't need to raise her voice to be heard. And for the first time, he wondered what it would feel like to be seen that way. Later that night, Kendra sat at her bedroom window. The city outside hummed. Car horns. Dogs barking. That low Atlanta buzz that never really stops. She held her phone, thumb hovering over her messages. One text from a news anchor, one from a law school recruiter. And one from her brother's old friend. "He would have been proud of you, just so you know." She exhaled. Her brother. He wasn't here. But somehow, his voice felt louder than ever. Flashback? 10 years ago she was 9, sitting on the curb, watching 2 cops talk to her brother like he was already guilty. Her mom yelling from the porch. Her brother cuffed anyway. That night, she heard her mom sobbing through the walls. That was the night she decided she'd never let silence win again. Back to now. She pulled a spiral notebook from her bag. Opened to a blank page. Wrote at the top, Day 1. After the room knew my name. Inside the judge's house, Mallory sat in his kitchen, lights dim. His wife, Janine, stood at the stove. She hadn't said much since he got home. Finally, she spoke. She made you look bad. He didn't answer. Then she added quietly, maybe not because she wanted to. Maybe because you did that part yourself. He looked out the window. His reflection stared back in the glass, older, tired, unfamiliar. Maybe for the first time he didn't like what he saw. It started as a setup, a test. But now, Kendra wasn't just part of the system. She was changing it, and they all felt it coming. Do you regret how you treated her, Judge? He didn't answer, because sometimes the worst part isn't being exposed. It's realizing you finally have to look at yourself, and no one's standing in your way anymore. The video had passed 1 million views by sunrise. Kendra's name was trending. Not just in Atlanta, not just in Georgia. Everywhere. Morning shows ran the clip. She didn't shout. She didn't curse. She just stood there, and the room changed. By 8 a.m., Kendra's phone had 92 missed messages. Law professors, activists, even 2 senators. But she wasn't answering yet. She was still in her room. Hoodie on, lights off, trying to remember how to breathe through the noise. Meanwhile, across town, Judge Mallory was being asked to appear before the Judicial Oversight Board. He sat stiff in his office, reading the letter for the 3rd time. Preliminary review into patterns of racial bias. The words blurred. He'd always believed he was fair. Firm, yes. But fair. Now, people were calling for his resignation. At 10 a.m., his phone rang again. A local news anchor wanted him on air. He didn't answer, but the world wasn't waiting. That afternoon, a town hall was held at a local high school gym. Not planned, just people showing up. Folding chairs, cheap coffee. Mothers, pastors, teachers. Even a few teenagers who never thought they'd care about courtroom drama. And in the front row, Kendra, wearing the same hoodie from that day. Hair pulled back. No makeup, no armor, just her. A woman took the mic. I watched her. Watched her stand still while that man tried to cut her down. The room murmured. Another voice called out from the back. She reminded me of my daughter. The way she kept her voice steady. Kendra didn't speak at first. She listened. Took it all in. Then someone handed her the mic. And the room went still. She looked around, into faces that were tired, proud, angry, hopeful. I didn't do anything special, she began. I just didn't sit down when it was easier to. Pause. And if that shook something, maybe that means it needed shaking. The applause was quiet but steady. It wasn't for the moment. It was for the mirror she had held up. And the fact that people were finally looking into it. Back at the courthouse, Judge Mallory sat through a closed-door meeting. A review board. Cold eyes. Typed notes. Quotes pulled from transcripts that he never thought would come back. He tried to explain. I was tired. It was a long docket. I didn't mean it the way it sounded. One woman raised an eyebrow. You've said those words to 5 different girls over the past year. Silence. Then she asked, do you think they heard it the way you meant it, or the way it felt? He didn't answer, because suddenly the answer mattered. Outside the meeting room, a young reporter waited by the elevators. Tessa, the same one who rewrote her headline days ago. She saw the judge and stepped forward. Judge Mallory, do you regret how you treated Kendra Ellis? His mouth opened, closed. No statement, no spin. Just a man who finally realized silence could be his sentence too. That evening, Kendra sat in her backyard. It smelled like jasmine and grass. Her mom grilled chicken. Molly, her little niece, played with sidewalk chalk on the porch. It was the first normal moment in days. She looked up at the stars. And for the first time since the courtroom, she whispered out loud, did I do the right thing? Her mom sat beside her. Didn't say much, just reached over and held her hand. That was enough. The world was watching now. But Kendra wasn't chasing fame. She was chasing truth, and what came next would cut deeper than any headline. She didn't become brilliant because she wanted to prove something. She became brilliant because she watched someone she loved disappear, without anyone asking why. 12 years ago. Kendra was 7. It was summer. Humid. Long evenings with bugs buzzing at the window. Her brother, Malik, had just turned 16. He was tall, funny, always flipping a basketball in his hand. He had a part-time job at the local gas station and talked about getting his own car by senior year. One night, he didn't come home. Kendra remembered the knock. How her mom froze, halfway through folding laundry. How the living room lights felt too bright. How the two officers stood there, hands on their belts, eyes low. Your son's been taken in. Loitering. Resisting. Her mom's voice cracked. He was on his break. He works at that store. Didn't matter. He was already in a holding cell before she even got to finish her sentence. Kendra watched from behind the hallway wall. Her mom didn't cry until the door closed. They couldn't afford a good lawyer. Public defender showed up late. Didn't ask questions. Malik pled out to avoid a longer sentence. Just like that, he was gone. 3 months later, the gas station replaced him. 3 years later, he stopped writing. Kendra never got to ask him what happened. But she remembered what she felt. Helpless. Angry. And very, very small. So she studied. Hard. Every night. While other kids watched cartoons, she read. She didn't just want to be smart. She needed to understand what law meant, what courts could do, how a sentence could become a life. By middle school, she started correcting her teachers. By high school, she was tutoring seniors. College? Full scholarship. Every speech she gave, every exam she passed, was a whisper to the boy who never got a second chance. Back to present day. Kendra walked into her old high school. Same hallways. Same cracked trophy case. She was invited to speak to the debate team. She stood in front of a dozen teenagers. Some looked bored. A few looked nervous. She smiled. Some people think the courtroom is where you win. A pause. But really, it's where you show what you've already lived through. One girl raised her hand. How do you stay calm when people don't respect you? Kendra didn't answer right away. Then she said, you stop needing their respect to know who you are. That night, she sat at the kitchen table with her mom. Dinner was quiet. Chicken, rice, iced tea. Kendra pushed her food around on the plate. I still see him, you know, she said quietly. Her mom didn't ask who. She just nodded. I see him too. Kendra opened her laptop, pulled up a document titled, Malik, the case that never got told. Inside was everything she'd collected. Old court records, transcripts, notes she'd taken at age 10. She scrolled to the last line. The one she typed months ago but never shared. I couldn't save him, but I can make sure they never forget what they did. Flashback. Her college application essay, the prompt, why law? Her answer was just one paragraph. Because sometimes the law protects, but sometimes it buries people. I want to be the one who digs them back out. Back to now. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. Your words helped me. Thank you. D.H. Devonte, the boy in the orange jumpsuit. The one she stood beside in that courtroom. She smiled. For the first time in days, it didn't feel like a weight. Felt like a window. She didn't rise for glory. She rose because silence once stole everything from her. And now, the same system that took her brother was about to watch her stand again. This time, not alone. You didn't raise your voice. Didn't need to. Guess some people forget that truth don't have to yell. Kendra smiled. Yeah, but it echoes louder when it's finally heard. 2 weeks passed. The headlines slowed. The hashtags faded. But Kendra? She kept showing up. Every Tuesday and Thursday, she volunteered at a legal aid center downtown. She helped folks fill out forms, understand warrants, ask questions they were once too afraid to ask. Some people recognized her from the clip. Most didn't. She didn't mind either way. She didn't come here to be famous. She came to be useful. One afternoon, an older woman sat across from her. Pink coat, crooked glasses, voice like gravel. "You the girl from the court video?" Kendra paused, then nodded. The woman leaned in. "My grandson's got court next month. He's scared. Don't think anyone's gonna help him." Kendra reached across the desk. Wrote down a number. "Tell him to call. We'll help." The woman took the paper like it was gold. "Not all heroes wear capes," she said. Kendra smiled. "Sometimes they wear hoodies." Later that week, she walked through Piedmont Park. It was cool but sunny. She liked the quiet here. The soft hum of traffic in the distance, a place where the city didn't feel so loud. She sat on a bench, hoodie up, earbuds in. A voice broke through her thoughts. "You mind if I sit?" She looked up. Devontae, same boy from the courtroom. But different now. Fresh clothes, cleaner posture. Still quiet but not small. She nodded to the empty space beside her. He sat. A beat passed. Then he said, "They dropped the charges." Her head turned fast. "What?" "Community service." "That's it," said someone. "Flagged my case for review. Some girl who knew her stuff." He smiled, barely. "Don't know who that was, though." Kendra laughed. "Sounds like someone smart." He looked down at his hands. "I ain't used to people standing up like that." She stayed quiet. He added, "Thought you were just some other kid. Till you weren't." They sat in silence for a few minutes. Birds chirping. Distant basketball bounce from the court nearby. Then he said, "I signed up for GED classes. Figured. Maybe it's not too late to start fresh." Kendra turned toward him. "It's not." When he stood to leave, he offered something soft but strong. "Thanks. For seeing me." Kendra nodded. "I didn't save you, Devontae. You did that." He smirked. "Yeah. But it helped that someone reminded me I was worth saving." That evening, Kendra sat on the porch with her mom. Rocking chairs. Sweet tea. He kind of stillness that felt like safety. Her mom spoke first. "You've changed." Kendra looked at her. "Good or bad?" Her mom smiled. "Neither. Just deeper." They watched the sun dip behind the houses. Then her mom said, "Your brother would have liked this you. The one who talks. The one who listens. The one who don't let fear write her name." Kendra swallowed the lump in her throat. "I hope he sees me." Her mom reached over. "He always did." Flashback, Kendra. Age 13. Sitting in the back of a church while her brother's name was read in prayer. People bowed heads. Said, "Amen." She didn't cry. She just wrote Malik in the back of her notebook. Over and over. Back to now. Kendra opens that same notebook. The back page is worn, but still there. She writes something new beneath his name. Still fighting, but finally breathing. End of Act 6. Emotional pull into Act 7. Micro hook. She'd spent years learning how to stand. But soon, she'd have to decide what to do when the system tried to knock her down again. Not in whispers, but in public. If she speaks, they'll listen. And if she stays silent, then they'll write the ending for her. And Kendra? She'd learned the hard way, never let someone else hold the pen. It started with 1 email. Then 2. Then 20. The State Judicial Board announced a formal hearing. A public one. Judge Warren Mallory was facing possible removal. They requested witness statements, and Kendra's name was on top of the list. Some called it justice. Some called it revenge. But for Kendra, it was complicated. She sat in her college library, laptop open, coffee cold. She stared at the email asking her to testify. Just a few words. Just the truth. But this time in front of a board, a judge, cameras, and a nation still watching. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from Mr. Chavez. "Whatever you decide, make sure it's your choice, not the crowd's." She turned the phone over. Exhaled. Across town, Judge Mallory sat in a private office. His hands trembled slightly as he reviewed the hearing notice. Decades of rulings. Dozens of complaints. Now finally, a wall closing in. His lawyer warned him, They want a public apology, a full statement, or they'll take it further. Mallory scoffed. Say sorry for doing my job? But deep down, something cracked. Not out of guilt, out of fear that maybe he'd never really seen the people in his courtroom at all. The next day, Kendra stood in a packed auditorium at her college. She had been invited to speak again. Topic: what justice looks like when no one is looking. She stepped to the mic. Eyes on her. Phones raised. A sea of young faces. She didn't use notes. She just said, justice isn't loud. It's not always clear. But it knows who it's looking for. A beat. And right now it's looking at me. Later, outside, a freshman stopped her. You're gonna testify, right? Kendra paused. I haven't decided. The girl nodded slowly. Well, you taught us how to speak up. Just hope you don't forget it now. That night, Kendra visited her brother's old middle school. No cameras. No crowd. Just her, standing in front of the mural he helped paint before he was taken away. She reached out and touched the corner of it. Faded blue paint under her fingers. She whispered, What would you do, Malik? The wind didn't answer, but her gut did. Hearing day, downtown Atlanta. The courthouse steps were crowded, news trucks, protest signs, college students, retired judges, lawyers, reporters. One sign read, If we stay silent, we stay stuck. Another said, Believe black brilliance. Kendra walked in through the side door. Calm, collected. But her heart was racing. She wore a navy blazer. Same sneakers from her original courtroom appearance. Balance. Inside, Mallory sat at a long table. He looked smaller without the robe. His lawyer leaned over. She's here. He didn't turn. Just said, I figured. Kendra was sworn in. She sat, adjusted the mic, and looked up. The panel of judges stared at her, expressionless. She spoke. I'm not here to destroy a man's career. I'm here to protect the next kid who walks into a courtroom and gets judged before they open their mouth. She let that sink in. I didn't set out to be a symbol. But I won't run from it either. Mallory finally looked at her. She met his gaze, not angry, not afraid, just steady. And in that locked moment she saw it. Not regret, but recognition. Like maybe, just maybe, he was finally listening. The courtroom was quiet as she finished. No applause, no noise, just truth laid down clean and sharp. As she walked out of the courthouse, a young boy tugged at his mom's coat. Is that her? The woman nodded. Yeah, that's Kendra Ellis. The boy stared. She looks regular. The mom smiled. She is. But her voice ain't. Some people break silence with shouting. She broke hers with knowing. Not because she needed to win, but because someone needed to finally see what truth looks like when it stands still. 1 month later, the hearings were over. The verdict was in. Judge Mallory had resigned. Quietly. No interviews. No big statement. Just one letter posted to the courthouse website. I've spent years believing I was firm but fair. But if fairness isn't felt, it isn't real. And if one voice made me stop to reflect, then maybe it's time I stepped down and started listening. It didn't trend. But it mattered. Kendra stood at her brother's grave. Same patch of Georgia soil. Same crooked fence along the back. She wore no suit. No hoodie. Just jeans and a soft gray sweater. In her hands, a sealed envelope. She knelt down. Hey, she whispered. Pulled the envelope from her coat. Tore it open. Bar exam. Passed. She placed it on the headstone. Right under his name. Right where his picture had faded from sun and rain. I told you I'd make it. You didn't get to stand in that courtroom. But you were in it. Through me. She smiled, eyes full. And they finally listened. 2 weeks later, she walked into a small classroom at a local high school. Same one Devontae now attended part-time. He waved from the back row, grinning. She nodded back. Today, she wasn't a guest speaker. She was their new part-time legal studies mentor. She stood in front of a whiteboard. Wrote 3 words. Silence. Truth. Power. Turned around. Faced the room. Anyone know what connects these? One student raised her hand. They all live in the same person. Kendra smiled. Exactly. Later that evening, she walked through her neighborhood. Lights on. Kids riding bikes. Someone grilling down the street. She passed the old mural Malik helped paint. The one peeling at the edges. She ran her fingers along the wall again. This time, she didn't cry. She just whispered, "Thank you." That night on the porch, her mom handed her a manila envelope. Came in the mail. Kendra opened it. Inside, a framed certificate, her official bar license, and a note, typed, simple, from the Chief Judge of Georgia. Your voice will shape courts, policies, and futures. But never forget, the silence you broke saved more than one life. She stared at the note, then looked up at the sky. Flashback? Her first time inside a courtroom. 10 years old. Too scared to speak. Her mom holding her hand. The judge looking through her like she was glass. Back to now. She sat at her desk. Opened her laptop. Started a new file. Day 1, my own courtroom. She had been offered a junior clerkship. Then a mentorship program. Then a leadership fellowship. But she was choosing something else. She was starting her own legal aid clinic. Free help. Real answers. No suits required. Because some people wait for the system to see them. Kendra. She built a door where none existed. And before bed, she grabbed her old notebook, the one with Malik's name. She added one final line beneath it. We made it. And I'm not done. Justice didn't roar. It whispered. And for the first time, the world leaned in. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.